It was a good night on the edge of Loch Broom. It's an expensive campsite. It was £21 per night with no hookup or anything. We had a very quick getaway from Ullapool as we were not connected up to anything, and we have only 58 miles now to go to the next site at Inverness.
We're off for a walk into Inverness.
On the way we saw this bird sitting on a plastic bag.
You think it's a nest?
We walked along the banks of the River Ness.
It's very fast flowing. The river is the only thing I actually remember of this place.
A bit of the town.
I don't.
And there's a bridge over the river going into the town.
Where my heart will I remain in my own country.
Very bouncy. Much bouncier than I thought.
This statue represents faith, hope and charity. We walked up the hill to Inverness Castle and looked at the views across the city. This is the original castle well. The lady who runs the campsite told us that Church Street was the centre of attention, so we walked down there looking for an Indian restaurant to have dinner.
Country, where the glint through the mark, I tell stay.
Hi, do you have a table for two?
It'll shine upon them.
There was a lovely atmosphere in this place and the food was very good indeed. On the way back to the caravan we kept getting glimpses of the golden hour, but then the light would fade and it would return to its normal dull grey.
Hame, 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 in my own country, where the bark and the pine and the bonny rowan tree.
We're visiting the battlefield of Culloden, which proved to be the last battle on British soil.
It's windy. Now this uprising here starts in 1745 when Bonnie and Prince Charlie lands in Scotland. Now you're currently standing exactly where the front line of the British government army stood on the day of the battle. At this end of the field, the distance from one red flag to the next is the length of one regiment. Now the Battle of Culloden starts just after noon, starts about 12:30, and it starts off with Jacobite artillery fire. The Jacobites fire their cannons, and then the government returns cannon fire. Now the Jacobites actually have more cannons than the government army, but they had only very recently acquired them and they were not very good at using them. The Jacobite artillery can fire one shot every 5 minutes, whereas the British artillery are some of the best in Europe at the time and can fire every 40 seconds. That's 7 or 8 times faster than the Jacobites, and they are much more accurate. So about 20 to 30 minutes after the first cannon shot has been fired, the Jacobites were being hammered by cannon fire. And they decide they can't wait any longer and they sound the Highland Charge. Now the Highland Charge is sort of the special attack of the Jacobite army. It relies on the fact that every single regiment on the Jacobite front line is a Highland regiment. And it's a shock tactic, it's a scare tactic. It consists of the entirety of the front line running at the same time, full force, screaming at the top of their lungs across the battlefield, hoping to scare and knock enemy soldiers, entire bits of government regiments into turning and running away. If they can make holes in the government front line, they can get in between the government soldiers. And the Highlanders were absolutely dead in close quarter combat. It was a very effective tactic. It had never been defeated before the Battle of Culloden. But it doesn't work here for a variety of reasons. The primary one is that the soldiers are exhausted and that they're getting stuck in knee-deep mud. At this end of the field, the Highland Charge won. They break through Barrow's and Monroe's regiments, but the entirety of the rest of the Jacobite front line never even meets the government front line. Most of them get stuck about halfway across the battlefield in the bog and in the mud. Now, because they only break through at one end, the Duke of Cumberland has time to focus his attention on just this end of the battlefield. So he orders his second line forward, and they're ordered to march forward, surround the two regiments where the Highland Charge has broken through, and shoot into the area. Now that does mean they're shooting their own soldiers, but if they can hit enough Jacobites, that's a risk they're willing to take. And it pays off, because in 2 to 3 minutes, the 700 Jacobites who were part of the successful Highland Charge are either dead or wounded, and the Jacobite retreat is sounded. The entire Jacobite front line, whether they met the government front line or not, turn and run back across the battlefield.